the general positive vibe of the company. Honestly, no. Culture is the point what you feel about the workplace on Sunday night about the Monday morning. As simple as that.
Culturally, all these countries could be very different. Employees could be culturally very different. But when it comes to HR and activities of transformation or changes, all of them have a similar way of working, they have to face the similar challenges.
You just have to be able to look. And the harder you look, the more you will find. But if you just accept mediocre, then
Hello everyone, welcome to Talent Unwrapped, the Dubai edition. Well, in all honesty, this is the third episode of Talent Unwrapped. Well, the first one happened way back in Colombo a couple of months ago during the 20th anniversary of Careers 141 and also to celebrate 100,000 followers they got on LinkedIn. Second episode was moderated by the founder himself, Azim, in Singapore. Here we are today for the Dubai edition tonight, talking to three eminent HR professionals on this fantastic topic that is an eye-opener to all CEOs, CHROs, anybody involved in HR. Moving from HR to business impact, creating high talent people in the GCC. So today's episode is going to be zero theory. Expect zero theory from us. It is going to be unwrapping the real playbook of HR and how it is maneuvered here in this part of the region. Let's be honest, this is one of the most competitive and the fastest growing regions in the world. And how does HR operate here? How do organizations actually transform their people, processes, capability and capacity to remain relevant and competitive in a market like this? To unveil this, to put this into perspective, to actually decode how these complex models unveil in everyday HR life, I've got three experts with me. Well, the truth is that their experience put together accumulates to more than 60 years. Spanning across multiple countries that actually attribute to more than 10% of the world. So what they have in the next 60 minutes for us is going to be absolutely stunning, and probably some of which are unheard. Some instances and examples are things that you have never heard or seen before in any HR podcast that you've heard. Let me introduce the panel to you. First up, I have Mohammed Hafiji, a senior HR transformation leader with 20 years of experience across the UAE, Canada, South Africa, India and MEA. He leads major people operations and Gen AI transformation at Emirates NDB, back in PepsiCo, Clariant, Kansai Paints and Legend Boats. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us into the show. Up next, I'd like to introduce Gargi Banerjee, a strategic HR and organizational design expert with 20 plus years across the UAE, GCC, India, West Africa and 16 Middle East and North African markets, transforming organizations such as Skipper Seal, Julfa, Cadila, Reckitt, Amway, and Johnson & Johnson with commercial first people strategy. And of course, with me, we have today Franklin Henricus, a global HR leader with 20 years in the Middle East across 11 countries, plus India, China, and Philippines. He drove regional transformation for SGS, Maersk, Deutsche Bank, Mashreq, Wipro, and Citel, specializing in HRIS, workforce planning, and large-scale HR transformation. Thank you very much to Gargi and also to Frank for joining us in today's show. I look forward to discussing some contemporary HR topics relevant to this region, and find out what exactly all of you think about the questions I have for you this evening. So first up, my first question of the day goes to Mohammed. Mohammed, from your experience across global HR operations, what do you see as the biggest shift happening in the HR function today, and how should organizations prepare for it? So the honest truth is that every industry is going through transformation and change. And as to how you see it from your experience in global HR operations, what do you see is the biggest shift, and how do organizations, or how must they prepare for it?
So the biggest shift obviously is technology. We see more and more of it in some form or other. We started to see back in the early 2000s a race to get all HR information onto a system. In organizations that had multi-country rollouts, we had to bring everybody together. So when I was at Pepsi, that was our biggest aim, was really to bring everybody onto one system. That quickly evolved into consolidating and standardizing a lot of processes, consolidating payroll across regions or across countries, consolidating talent information. So we started to see a shift from being very focused on a country to a region, into a bigger region. And now we have more of a self-service option. So previously, where people would reach out to HR, oh, can I get a copy of my certificate? Can I get a copy of this? It's moving to a self-service organization. And it's really freeing up time for HR professionals, because what it means is that previously, where they were directly involved in high touch and high volume transactions, like, doing many processes and many transactions, that's now being reduced, which has enabled them to utilize their time elsewhere. But at the same time, as the systems have evolved, we've also been challenged with upskilling our HR teams and upskilling our HR people. And at the forefront of that upskilling is really upskilling them today on what the impact is going to be from a Gen AI perspective, as well as an agentive AI perspective, because that is not just a buzzword, but it's the way that it's moving, right? So if you're an HR professional, the most important thing you have to do is to make sure that you're upskilling yourself and staying ahead of what's going to come, because otherwise your role will become obsolete. But if you maintain that momentum of always being on top of things, then it sets you apart. And from an HR systems perspective and for the stakeholder involved, I think the biggest benefit that's going to change is that previously we always looked back, right? So you did a dashboard, how many people left in the last month, how long did it take you to hire people? What we're moving towards is predictive analysis, right? What can we do with the information that we've collected, and how can we predict what will happen going forward?
All right, fantastic. I mean, it's not necessarily the fear of AI, it is technology coming. And if you're in pace with what is happening in the world, and if you are able to make the shift at the right time, particularly educate yourself and grasp what is happening in the world, you're there. Fear, it's not necessarily fear or anything to do with fear. It is about upskilling and educating yourself to go in the right path, from my understanding.
Yeah, and it works both ways as well, right? Because it's also about the employer. What are you doing? Because strategically, you know where you're taking the business, and strategically, you know what transformation system you're bringing into place. So it's also your responsibility as an employer to look at the staff that you have, look at the skill they have, and look at how you can harness that skill, but also enhance what they have or augment what they have. Because if you make the effort as an employer to invest in your people in as much as you're investing in technology, then it's a win-win for both, right? But if you just investing in technology, then the technology laps the people, right? It moves forward 10 paces and the people are still there. So you effectively create an obsolete workforce for yourself. So from an HR point of view, it's not only about what system you develop for the organization, but also about how you're taking the HR people forward, right? So I think a lot of times we always forget about HR for HR. I know it sounds like a buzzword, but I don't think we do enough of it.
I think that's something Gargi speaks to us in detail in the preparatory chat is something that you brought up with. How does this stand in your mind, Gargi? If I do put this as a very short question to you, what's the biggest shift that is happening and how do you think organizations can prepare? What's in your mind in a sentence or two?
Obviously, technology is one of the biggest shifts. We all know about it. But one of the major points that I see in this region is the mindset shift about accepting HR as a value engine rather than just a support function. And this is people like us who are trying to build this silent movement, taking the flag of our function. We need to speak about it, what actually the HR brings on the table and how HR is actually moving the needle. And it is more of a mindset, more of a shift of understanding, acceptance, and taking HR into the business decision much early than when everything is done, then HR is informed. That is one of the biggest shift from the employer perspective, from the business perspective, that we need to really probably, I should say, publicize more, speak about more, and of course, this kind of forums, let that flag flying high, actually,
I agree. So, come to you, Frank. Muhammad has said it is technology that is the biggest shift. Gargi wants to ring fence the idea of HR for HR, and more importantly, how it can have a voice of its own. But if I do ask you, would you have a different opinion? Probably really quickly to see if it's only those two, or is there anything else? If it's ring fenced to the GCC that is operating beyond the two variables that we've spoken.
No, if you ask me, I mean, after seeing, I've worked with multiple countries and different geographies altogether, be it the Middle East or be it countries like Jordan, Iraq, or even if I look at India, China, and Philippines, one thing which I've observed is that culturally, all these countries could be very different. Employees could be culturally very different. But when it comes to HR and activities of transformation or changes, all of them have a similar way of working, they have to face the similar challenges. So I think it's definitely in agreement from there.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for your inputs. I'm going to come back to Gargi with my second question. You believe in HR as a value creation engine. You also spoke of the fact that people need to stop looking at HR as a support function, but as a value creator, as people who move the needles, which I believe is the truth. In a modern, rapid organization, if HR doesn't understand the business and they're not contributing to moving the needle, well, they aren't getting anywhere. So my question is, what actually makes HR commercial? And having asked that, why or how should organizations make this shift or make this link to find the connection?
Superb question. And first and foremost, the question is at the heart and mind of all of us and at the heart and mind of all the employers as well. Because progressive organization wants to be partnering with HR. Non-progressive organization wants to make HR the scapegoat. HR as a function, as we all are, we need to actually find our voice and find our space, how we leverage and how we step up on that particular journey. And it is not an easy journey, I must tell you, because the organization does not, or the functions or the business does not really care about your processes until and unless they see the outcome. And when we talk about outcome, it is actually the relevant, tangible outcome. So, taking Mohammad's point, are we only showing the dashboards? No, it is the predictive analysis. Second point, cost per hire. We love all these pointers, but the point is cost of wrong hire is a bigger predictive analytics that we need to talk. Second is employee or productivity per employee. Or vacancy days for some vacancy that has been done or not been filled for years, or we are lowballing some offers or lowballing some position just for the sake of it. So to be commercially having that acumen, one of the major thing that I want all of us and the HR fraternity to really understand, does HR understand finance? Does HR know from where the organization is earning money? Where are the leaking points for the organization to lose those profitability? Because if we understand that, then we are not talking about our processes only. We are linking those processes with an outcome. Yes, if I do not have this particular recruitment done, you are in a risk, or rather we are in a risk to lose this particular dollar or particular X amount in coming months because of the vacancy days. Second point which I definitely want to talk is, as HR professionals, how we can create that partnership, how we can talk the business language to get that particular mind share, so that business, actually we are positively pushing the business to take us into the fold of discussion when the actual decisions are happening. Getting the seat at the table, it definitely asks for being uncomfortable to learn something beyond HR. And that is the commercial engine of the organization. If you know that, people would love to come, obviously not at the first place, but they will build that credibility in their back of the mind. Okay, let me talk to Mohammed, let me talk to Gargi, let me talk to Frank. Probably they have an outcome or they have an output to share. Okay, this way, if we do it, then we are definitely linking the business strategy with the people impact. Because it is the people in the era of social media, we need to be really doubly, triply sure that we do things not only in the right manner for today, but also for medium term and the long term. So this is how you step up. And it is, of course, coming out of the comfort zone for the HR function to learn the commercial acumen. What matters when we do not talk the processes, but we talk the outcome.
Love it, Gargi. I think what fascinates me about your answer is that you went into absolute depths of everyday HR. I mean, we are the team in charge of recruitment. HR is in charge of performance management. HR is in charge of targets. But do we police our own self to earn the credibility of other people? How long has a vacancy been there open, unfilled? What is your average recruitment time? Does HR also understand the difficulties an employee who's working a 24-hour shift goes through? Or do we also know the difficulties a sales team is going through while we put some targets on them? Do we understand the business before we put those tapes on them?
Do we visit the market?
Absolutely.
Do
you
we
eat your own
visit
dog
the
food?
market? Do you know your customers? Do you know, or are you really beyond your PowerPoint? That is the point.
That is what makes the difference,
Yes,
and I
absolutely.
think there is no disagreement, and that is a rock solid answer to the inner part of that question also. How can we earn that credibility? You started off by everyday examples and you came to the point of saying, yeah, it's about getting a seat in the table. The truth is it is going to be uncomfortable as you enter because the language there may be very, very different, but if you earn your respect there, then that means you've done your job. I'm just going to quickly hop over to Frank and ask you a question. Not a difficult one, but a challenging one. This one is about, do businesses underestimate HR? But if you think they're doing so, why is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a very important question, because HR always has its own perspective and business has their own perspective. And this usually comes into play because, we're in a region which is changing. We're in a region which is evolving and evolving very, very fast. So even if I look at companies today, companies are changing, companies are evolving. I think the word that we use or we love to use is transformation. We like to say HR transformation or finance transformation. But do companies really know what is transformation? What is this change? Why are they doing it? So I think these are some aspects that we really need to look at. Even when it comes to transformation, I think we need to look at three specific aspects of these. I think number one would definitely be clearly communicating to the business why we're doing something. If I give you a quick example from work, is in my last organization at SGS, we went ahead and implemented a new HRIS application. So it was with Workday. So obviously it's a world-class system. So from an HR point of view, it's fantastic. We're getting this new digital system. Everything, it's going to answer all your problems and all your questions are going to be answered. But from a business aspect, if you do not clearly communicate to them, it's just, is this just another HR initiative? Absolutely. Yeah. Is this just something HR is doing? Is this going to lead to redundancy in some way? Why are they doing it? So it's only when HR clearly communicates to the business saying, hey, this is going to take care of a lot of concerns that you have, a lot of information that you've previously needed to go to an HR BP to or to your business partner to, you probably have it on the system directly. Or a lot of analysis that you had to do earlier manually or assume will now be available on your fingertips. I think once you give them this aspect, they balance themselves. Second part also, which is important, is from a capability aspect. When you're transforming, when you're changing something within HR for the business, many organizations just assume capability is there. And let me give you another, maybe a real life example. Is when I was at Maersk, I was heading the recruitment function for India, China, and Philippines for the transformation phase of moving recruitment from an in-house recruitment team and system to an external. We were basically outsourcing it to IBM. Of course, they had a fantastic system, and we knew it that it's going to take care of a lot of concerns, a lot of improve recruitment as well. But again, the flip side is we need to understand from a business point of view, the hiring managers, for them a lot changes. For them now, they do not have an internal HR person to go to. Earlier, they probably just worked on job descriptions or communication. Now they have to follow workflows. They have to follow the system. There's governance. There's going to be a TAT on the reply or the response time that they get. Secondly, it's a new system altogether. So organizations need to also invest in capability, rather than assuming that we transform, we get the new system, people learn on the go. It doesn't really work that way. I think you have to, if you really want to succeed as an organization, you have to invest in the capability. And last, it also takes a lot of courage, for HR and business. It also takes a lot of courage to really transform something. Why? Because it takes courage to change something. If you want to transform something, you're talking of a shift, and transformations are messy. Yeah, they're definitely messy. You have to get into every aspect of dealing with people, understanding spans, understanding layers, understanding designations. It could lead to taking off certain legacy jobs that were there within the company. So it can be a messy thing. So someone has to take a call that, okay, we are going to transform or we are going to change. I think these are some important aspects that we need to look at. But I think if we are clear with the business that this is what's going to happen, we communicate well in advance, letting them know what's going to happen, both business and HR can work in sync. Because business and your employees, to be honest, they're not really afraid of change. We have this perspective that employees are afraid of change. They're not afraid of change. They're just afraid of the uncertainty that will come with that as a result of that change. So if you can involve them, get them on the bandwagon, build the capability for them, you can work in tandem with the business.
This goes very well, Frank, with a great place to work conference panel discussion that was moderating just a couple of weeks ago, where they actually spoke on the same lines. People don't hate change, just that they are unsure about what is coming after the change. The uncertainty is what causes fear or anxiety or resistance. If you are able to clearly communicate and then tell them these are the multiple paths that will open up as a result of this initiative, then people are more than happy to onboard to that and support the initiative, which is true. Mohammed, I'm going to come over to you as a part of that question. Give you 60 seconds to tell me. Both them spoke of moving the needle. They said how HR can be a part of performance, how HR can be a part of the company's ecosystem that makes money. But have you ever been a part of an HR team, or have you seen an HR instance where HR has been involved in moving a business metric?
Yes. I think when it comes to development, I've seen it happen in person. And this is, so the example was we were starting a new line, and it was really about hiring good talent, but not just average talent, because traditionally what used to happen in the plants was people would progress, right? Like someone would come in, they'd be a good packer, they'd move into being a technician. And when we started this line, we took a gamble. And the gamble was that we would hire fresh graduates straight out of high school, not necessarily out of university. And we did it in communities where people were disadvantaged, and giving people an opportunity and access to the workplace that they would not have otherwise had. And the enthusiasm that they brought to the shop floor was unmatched, right? And in the beginning, it created this buffer between, there's these young new graduates from high school, and then there's the rest of the technicians. But what helped a lot was I created a buddy system where they were assigned to a more senior person. And that helped a lot because they started to learn off each other. And what inevitably happened is that we created an internal competition around like how much waste you make, how much do you produce, how quickly can you produce it. So it was something very small, but it was just about selecting candidates in a different way. So for example, Frank was talking about when you hire people and you go through the process and hiring managers. And I think we turned that on its head and we actually led the recruitment from the candidate's perspective rather than from the company perspective. And that made a big difference.
That probably moved some business metrics and brought in some results to the whole of the business.
Yeah.
Because it was a outside-in approach which changed how people looked at the whole thing going forward. So fantastic.
Exactly. And it also, I think it helps when I think a hallmark of a good HR person is when you accept that there are sometimes smarter people that can do things, and hiring smart people is always an effective thing to do. And in that instance, it was hiring smart people who would not otherwise have had the opportunity. And I think they also appreciated it more than...
You've got into the path of
exactly.
more inclusion as well while you solve the
Exactly.
problem. Great. I'm going to come back to Frank with a question from a different perspective. You spoke of the word transformation and you said it's how we want to glorify change. But it's good. People love the word sometimes, and it's also driven in a positive purpose. This question that I have for you is putting all your regional experience into perspective, the multiple organizations that you worked for. What challenges do organizations actually face during this phase of transformation? And everybody wants to transform. That is the truth. And many embark on that journey. Almost everybody does, but not everybody succeeds. The ones who succeed, what are they doing differently during this transformation phase?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, transformation is messy, but we have to accept it, that it's part and parcel, because all companies are doing it in its own way. And there is no choice. And transformation never really ends. Every organization will transform something, but at some given point in time, they will probably look at transforming something different. And transformation involves, again, a complete deep dive into every aspect. Unfortunately, whenever you say transformation, the first thing which comes to people's mind is efficiency. And after that, is there going to be redundancy? So yes, these challenges always keep coming up. But I think what differentiates companies between those who succeed in a transformation and those who don't is primarily two factors. I think one is clearly discipline. The reason why I say discipline is because, when you do a transformation, it never goes as per plan. So yes, you will have your plan and your timelines and your roadmaps, but you need to understand that you need to be extremely diligent in terms of tracking where you are at what point in time. If there's any course correction, you cannot do it at the last minute. Organizations need to buffer this course correction, and it needs to be done much earlier at an earlier stage. I think these are some factors which really come into play when it comes to being disciplined in terms of what is it that you want to do. And mostly I think it's all about communication, communicating.
Like you said before, right?
Yes,
getting
communicating and having the right kind of courage. Because just to give you an example, when I was with Deutsche Bank, we had a fantastic organization, 3,000 plus employees in one city, doing exceptionally well and doing what needed to be done. But again, Deutsche Bank being an organization which is highly driven in terms of efficiency and for all the right reasons, it was noted that there was a satellite town next to where this operated, where you could get better skill, because there were a lot more universities and colleges where you could get finance graduates or finance MBAs or, as you require. And they were easily available, readily available. Being a satellite town, it was also had a lower cost of living, but a better standard of living. So someone had to really take a call of how should we or should we not do it. So yes, in a transformation phase, it's not that simple, because you want to transform from one city to another, but at the same time, you don't want any break in business. So it involved a huge stake in terms of, even though we were moving those people on day one, you needed to have a minimum of 400 to 600 employees being live, well-trained and well-equipped. So again, you had to look at your current staff. Are they adaptable? Are they fungible? Can we move them? Are they willing to move? All those factors came into play. On the other side, you also need to have a buffer where you hire individuals, train them, so that there is no break in perspective. But transformations are good because from those in the existing city, if they were adaptable and they were ready to move, willing to pick up new skill sets, they grew. They grew with the organization. So it definitely has a lot of benefit from those aspects. And organizations that plan, like the first aspect I said, communicate clearly, those that look at the capabilities, build those capabilities, and obviously you need to have courage. First of all, courage to do the transformation. I think organizations that take these three things into account and clearly communicate what we're doing is we're building the future. We're not devastating the past, but we're building the future. And get employees on board. You have a success formula right out there.
I think, you started off by saying discipline, then you spoke of going back to the previous answer of communicating and being honest with what is coming forward and picking on that. It's also sometimes bespoke. Not everybody wants what the majority wants. You said 400 people kind of an operation. Imagine talking to all of those people individually and finding out if they're actually in for it is a big difference. That takes a lot of effort. And if you have the discipline to do it again and again, have that discussions with those people and see if they like it and you want to go that journey, then that's a success formula. By doing all that, you take the uncertainty out, and then people more often love it. If I'm going to cut across to you, Mohammed, and ask you a simple question coming out of that answer, again, a short one, 60 seconds for you this time too. There's resistance. When transformation happens, resistance is almost there every time for many reasons that are associated with it. What do you think is the biggest form of resistance that comes during transformation?
In my experience, the biggest form of resistance is when people are unsure about what would come next.
Uncertainty again, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And the best way to deal with that is to involve everyone from the beginning. Even if you're not sure if the person will have some sort of impact in the discussion or if it will affect their area, I think my experience tells me that the more people you involve from a change management point of view, the better it is. So people know exactly. So it's not that they would hear, you'd come to a meeting and then walk out and say to someone, they're going to change this process or they're going to change that process, but rather to have everyone involved.
You get representation from many groups, and so that nobody's surprised.
And the other thing is sometimes people who may not be directly affected by the change have good ideas on how to resolve things going forward.
Creating positive ambassadors in the journey.
Exactly. And not only that, it's about making the change stick, right? Because sometimes people go along with it and they just play the yes game, but really deep down, they're not fully committed to it. And so once it goes live, things start to fall through the cracks and you're like, well, how did we miss this? It's not that you missed it. It's just that you forgot to take people with you from the beginning. And
you gave them a surprise at some point.
Exactly.
And that doesn't help. I'm going to go to Gargi. Can we break resistance through organizational design or leverage on the culture to break this resistance? I mean, I understand you can't crack it and dissolve it fully, but how can we leverage on organizational design or culture to attack resistance?
Definitely the culture plays a huge role. And most of the time, we think that culture is how the general positive vibe of the company. Honestly, no. Culture is the point where you feel about the workplace on Sunday night about the Monday morning. As simple as that. It is deeply psychological, and culture is nothing but collective behavior at the workplace. And when we talk about culture, and I will come to that resistance point and the organization design, because it is a very, very science-backed, psychologically enhanced understanding. Because resistance comes generally. Visible resistance does not come from the employees. Visible resistance comes from the leaders. Because employees are, as Frank says, as Mohammed says, employees, they are really okay for the transformation or the change provided they know. But who are more probably, I don't know, on the air, who are more insecure about all this are the legacy people. And it is not only the people, the legacy mindset. So the HR's biggest understanding in the organization design is definitely to have, first and foremost, taking them along, all those leaders who are your biggest stakeholders, and at the same time can be a biggest blocker. You should be smart enough to identify them. And I have done that in multiple transformation that I have led, not only here, back in India, for UK projects in Reckitt as well, for Gulf Pharma here in UAE and other places, because I was their culture transformation lead. Now, the challenge is how HR is actually on the ground to understand that. Are we really giving one positive ambassadors to those so-called probable challenger? If you can break that, and if you can bring that integration, trust me, they will become your biggest ambassador, not from the HR's perspective, but when they see the benefit in that organization design. So what I have done in this particular large-scale transformation, in this design itself, we have placed somebody whom he trusts more than the HR, and the person should be talking the transformation language. So one barrier is broken. Second, your question is whether what was the last question you asked about the organization design and
culture.
Culture. Of course, culture transformation is definitely on the commercial value of the culture. Nobody is asking about what is the commercial value of culture. The commercial value of culture is about the decision delay. How much time are we going round and round to take the decision? People, Gen Z, or even our generation, we are the lead decision takers level at times. Trust me, our people wants us to be fast. And this is a question which is more of an introspection. Are we taking decisions, or are we just pretending that yes, we are taking decision? These are questions that needs to be asked at a different level of the organization itself. And when in today's world, with the advent of technology, with the advent of open communication, free-flowing communication, when you are creating a faster, accountability-driven, decision-centric culture, even if the decision is wrong, it's fine. Accept it and learn from it and move on. So that intent, that accountability, all this matters more while creating the culture. And of course, I like the way he said courage. Alongside courage, Frank, I think to show up, even if you don't feel like, because we are transformation leaders now, we also have most of the days are bad days. Yeah, it's a fact. So to show up, to have that courage, to have those positive ambassadors, at least improving our spirit, and to be there consistently saying, okay, yes, come on, this is something which we are doing. It is going to be better than yesterday. So that is something which is more critical, and that is deeply psychological. Are you there in that game, or you are just saying, okay, some PowerPoint's wonderful, CEO said, wow, fine, and your people are not feeling good to come to the workplace on Sunday night, and they are actually tracking the traffic. Okay, if I take half an hour, what I'm going to answer to my manager? Okay, fine, that's traffic only. So this is a fundamental question.
That's gone down. Your answer, Gargi, has gone down to the grassroots of everyday struggles employees go through. I love what you said about culture. It is about, I think what you said was a collection of behaviors. That is culture.
Behavior
right?
at the workplace.
I've heard many definitions about from multiple bodies of what organization culture is. They also say culture, it's strategy for breakfast, which is so true. But the collective behaviors is culture. It's so true. It's probably the most simplistic way you can always put it to define what culture is. But going deeper into what you said, some of the stuff like saying, how fast are we in making decisions? How many meetings are wasted? How many 30-minute slots of multiple people are wasted before we arrive at that decision? Sometimes, even after those multiple sessions, we've never arrived at that decision.
Absolutely.
We're pretending that we've arrived at a decision, but we haven't. And people outside.
6 to 8 people are signing on one piece of paper. These are the red flags.
Because not even one of them is confident to take responsibility, which is so true. I think accumulating everything that you said, it sounds like an extraordinary answer to what sounded pretty much like an ordinary question from my side. I'm going to go over to Muhammad and give you a question, because in the sidelines in our discussion, you also mentioned that one of your areas of passion or that you deeply work with is nationalisation. So this question is about that. If organizations, particularly in this region, are working towards employee efficiency, employee experience and nationalisation, trying to put all those together and achieve success, what would be your advice to them?
I think when it comes to nationalization in the UAE or in any of the GCC countries, the point of departure should not be about just hiring UAE nationals if it's in the UAE, or Saudi nationals. It's about hiring quality talent, and quality talent does exist. You just have to be able to look. And the harder you look, the more you will find. But if you just accept mediocre, then
And let that be your standard, then you're not in the right
yeah,
direction.
but the challenge is you end up hiring people and those people don't move. Whereas if you hire talented individuals, then you have created a pathway for them to be promoted into other levels. And it's not just about hiring people at the entry level, but it's about really taking people to the next level, right? So you can bring someone in at an entry level position, but it's how you develop that person to make them move into the next position. And I think something that HR people tend to shy away from is to create forced moves, right? We always say, oh, when the position becomes available. But I think when you expose people early on to say, okay, you did well in this position, I'm going to move you to the other position, or I'm going to give you this opportunity to do something different. Most of the time, people are quite excited, because I think a hallmark of a leader is not just supporting people, but it's helping people see opportunities that they don't see themselves. And when you find those opportunities and create those pathways, and you move these nationals into those positions, you actually become a great place to work, because people talk, right? People will be like, oh, in my organization, it's not just about hiring nationals, it's about hiring nationals, helping them to develop and giving them opportunities that they may not have had access to before. And I think that makes a big difference.
I can't agree more, Mohammed, because that is the truth. It's not necessarily about running behind or force-fitting nationals into the organization. It's about looking for talent. That is the truth. Even in diversity and inclusion, we look into every nick and corner of every community or group to identify talent, because talent lies in those groups too. And I think that's where the idea is.
Yeah, but I think also if you such a person, like I can talk from my own experience, right? Having grown up in a country where you were not given opportunities because you were a person of color, when you are selected for a position, you want people to know that you selected because of your merit and
not because of any other reason.
Not of your color or where you come from. And when you in that position, and if you're the first person in that position, you carry a responsibility, because you carry the responsibility.
You're the flag bearer.
Exactly. And you have to set the standard, right? And if you don't, it reflects
everybody
poorly
following
on
you from that group have a bad opportunity.
So you have a responsibility to represent yourself, but also your people, but also to make sure that you yourself believe that you're there in that position because of merit, right? You're not just going to go out and find 10 nationals and say, okay, we're going to take you, right? But what are you going to do with those people? And I think the people themselves have the same question, right? The more I interview people and the more I sit down with younger people, the questions they ask is not so much about, are you hiring UAE nationals or are you hiring Saudi nationals? It's about, if you hire me, what are the opportunities that exist in the organization? What can I do after this? How long do I have to be in this position? And when you honest and you speak with truth and candor from that perspective, people appreciate it. Like you can hire someone and you say, okay, you have to unfortunately do this position for at least 2 or 3 years. Like when we spoke to Frank earlier on, he was saying he works in such a niche environment where people need to do a job for a while to be able to become an expert. It's not you can just take someone for a period of 6 months and then move them again. It depends on the situation, but really you have to create, as an HR person or as an organization, these career pathways for people to be able to move. Because like Gargi was saying, it's again part of your culture, right? If you hire someone that's a national and you don't create an environment where they feel they can be 100% authentic, then that program fails itself.
Yeah, it's not just about initiative, what happens after that. I'm going to cross over with the essence of the same question to Frank and ask you, how do multinational companies, organizations manage localization and versus the gaps that come as a result of it? Is it something that we can you see it's handled differently in different regions, or how do they work around it?
Every country is different. What would probably work in Jordan would not work in UAE. What would work in Saudi, will probably not work in another country. So it's not a one size that fits all. But yes, we are in a region where we are promoting localization. We are in a region where we see companies not just hiring people now, but also training them for the future. And it comes to 2 points. What was always said is you have to build capability. Going on to what Mohammed said, building capability, training those individuals so that they can outgrow their current roles. That should be the motto of the organization, not keeping individuals where they are. That's very, very important. And I think if we have that perspective, localization or not, people and the organization
It's
will
about
grow.
positive mobility, right?
Absolutely.
And today's generation needs that.
Yeah. Without that, it's almost a prerequisite to do the job.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to be stagnant. Like Mohammed was also saying,
Because
it's not about
today's-
just hiring them. It is
Yes.
about their path after that.
And I want to add one point here. Today's generation is not doing job like us to pay the bills. They are doing job for the experience, for the purpose. And they have really the leverage to pick and choose their managers and pick and choose their organization. Probably 20 years ago, we were not having that leverage. So we need to be, or the organization need to be smart enough to create that hook and always polishing that hook nicely so that we become relevant as an employer.
And what do you do every day to make the workplace exciting for people like that? It is not that we are living in 40 years behind. We are in 2025, and what people expect in a workplace and in their job is very, very different from what people could have expected and got 20 years ago. So it's about sharpening and making it exciting every day for people who come in.
Yeah,
I can't
but I
agree more.
don't think it's only about young people. I think it's about
everyone.
everyone.
For everyone
right?
now, yes.
Because nowadays you have multi-generational workforces. You still have some baby boomers, and then you have Gen Z and whatever alphabet comes after that. But I think the issue is that you have to. It goes again to what Gargi was saying, right? It's about culture. What sort of organization do you set out to create? And how do you continuously support that? So it's not about just a once-off thing. People are like, we do birthdays, and like that's now par for the course. Like if you do a birthday, so what? If you have a year-end function, so what? It's you work from home, so what? We did it in COVID. People didn't think it was possible, but we did it.
We had to.
We had to, but some organizations were already doing it. It was just about how much were you willing to let go. I think it's about trust. It's about that you trust that someone's going to do the job. It's not anymore about how long you work, how many hours you work, how late you work, what time you come, what time you leave. It's about delivery, and it's about trusting that people will deliver no matter what.
I fully agree. I'm going to move on to my next question, that is actually going to be to Gargi, targeted on creating future-ready talent pipelines. What advice, or what have you learned, or what you've picked up in the contemporary world about creating future-ready talent pipelines that the senior leadership team can actually rely on?
I will answer this question with my own practice and with my own work that I have done. Look, Future Ready Talent Pipeline is one of the most favorite topic.
It's a good to hear term also.
It is a good to hear term. What the business is looking at, my first lens of definitely the business lens, the business is looking at clarity. The business is looking at exposure, and the business is looking at predictability, scalability, what means what. So from HR lens, now I am bringing back from the HR perspective. When we are talking about future-ready talent or pipeline for the leadership, the first point is, it is not a PowerPoint. It is a succession which is a 12 to 18 months journey, number one. Number two, the bench is going to, it is not a one hero or a two hero. It is not a captain, vice captain scenario. It is like a cricket team where everybody plays their role. So that is the bench. That is the predictability. That is the scalability. Because if it is dependent on one or two people, it will not be scalable. Number one. Number two, when we are talking about exposure, how much the business is really ready to do to share those stretch assignments, to take the challenge with those new people who are probably from the high school graduate, who are not university graduate. Somebody has taken alongside Muhammad, somebody in the business has taken that, have trusted their opinion, okay, and you see the enthusiasm. So along with this, one of the major points that I want to come back is this scalability. Is this productivity matrix for this particular talent bench that we are creating, they are going to solve my which issues, with what kind of timeline, what is the outcome? Because the previous talent reviews were more on process, and we HR people, we are like death by PowerPoint, like death by process. We love processes. So the essential element is, alongside the processes, what does it mean on the paper for the business, that they can see, yes, this is my ready pipeline for a supervisor or for an assistant manager or for a general manager in a scaling up business in coming 12 to 15 or 18 months time, and what kind of capability I am going to link it, so that I do not give him surprises, I give him real-time experience, and I actually take him to the next level. I will be giving a one small twist into this entire discussion. We are talking about leadership capability talent bench. The biggest area where we need to right now work alongside is the development of the leader or the business head who is actually asking for that. Because many a times the business heads or the hiring manager or somebody who is the promoter of that particular succession planning, he himself is stressed. Okay, do I really need good people in my team? The question the answer that which Frank says, you should be in a position to outgrow your role in 2 to 3 years' time. And that always does not mean that you are getting promoted. Outgrowth also happens with capability. Outgrowth also happens with new skills. Outgrowth also happens how many ready successor you have created who are ready to be taken up by other departments. And trust me, when you are changing culture, these are the commercial value of that culture that you are bringing on the table, where people really talk about, yes, this organization takes care of my own mobility and career aspirations. And the leaders need to understand that it is not an HR process, neither it is an HR-owned system. It is a business-driven HR outcome or a people outcome.
When you're building talent pipelines or future-ready pipelines is like I said before, it's a good thing to hear. It feels good. I mean, when you're applying for an award or recognizing yourselves and making that checkbox tick to say, yeah, we are doing it, is an easy thing to do. But all those disciplines that you just spoke of and how it is done, only if it's properly done and done methodically, I think we will achieve that situation of having a future-ready talent pipeline.
And it is integrated with the business.
Into the real-life system and
Absolutely.
what the business wants. And one of the other things that I love about what you said is that it's not about centering one person to do it. There is no vice captain, there's no hero, there's no man of the match here. It is about everybody being ready in the bench to take up a role whenever it's available. Not only that, you also made that fantastic point of sometimes when you make a future-ready bench, not do they essentially fill the role that they were trained for, because they outgrow, they are picked up by people out in different parts of the organization.
And I have done that.
To fill in the role.
It is like known as talent marketplace. I have done
go
that.
And find the talented people, pick
Absolutely.
up. But it becomes easy if the talent is available.
Yes, from quality to R&D, from a commercial marketing function to a regulatory function. This kind of movement opens up your employer brand in a very different manner, because in today's world everybody talks, and we should be in a position, or rather we should be smart enough to give them positive pointers to talk about their own career. And everybody loves that. Yeah. Trust me.
So true. I'm going to move on to Frank with one of my favorite questions, an interesting one. Anybody who's watching this podcast and wants to have a career in this part of the world are looking forward to this answer. It's a competitive workplace. It's fast growing. We've said that before. You're someone who's never afraid to switch between jobs. You've flipped between many, and you've had multiple experience from many workplaces. So do Muhammad and Gargi. But I'm going to ask you, if somebody wants to come here, or is already here, wants to build a career, already has a career, wants to build a more stronger one, what does it take in the workforce? What does the workforce need to be relevant, competitive, and be sought after in a market like this?
Again, I'll come back to the GCC and to this region. I think it's a fabulous place to be, because it's not just changing and evolving, it's literally jumping. It's not moving at a certain space. Policies change, guidelines change, and all for good reason, again. So if you ask me, if you're coming to this region and you want to really be successful in this region, difficult question, but if you ask me, the key point here is not really, yes, skills are important. So technical skills are important for the role that you do. But what this region really needs, because the pace of change is so fast, is, are you adaptable? Can you, or do you have the ability to get the skills that are required for the future? That's absolutely number one. So you should be able to understand what are the skills that would be needed for the future, and are you adaptable to change? Like, are you able to move? Are you able to pick up? If you ask me, in this region, you cannot really have someone who just says, this is my job description, this is part of my job. No, you could be pulled into anything, and you should be someone who will not question that why am I there, but you need to look at it from a point of view. Okay, I have been invited, or sometimes don't wait for an invitation. Just
get in there.
Don't wait for someone to ask you. Just get in there, see where you can add value, and if you can add value, go ahead and push through. Because when I do succession planning, when we do succession planning, and we did very diligently in my previous organization in Maersk, across countries, we move people around from one place to another, from one country to another, one role to another, and I really seen it as those individuals who were willing to take that chance of not be comfortable, move, harness a new role, learn a new skill, were the ones who really succeeded in these aspects. So this is one aspect. Be ready, because this region, it's not really about your experience, it's not really how smart you are, but it's how adaptable you are to that. And also curiosity, I think, is very important if you are in this region, because again, going through my past experience, I just want to let everyone know is you have to be curious. Like in Deutsche Bank, when someone had to be promoted, it was not just the manager's decision, but there were development centers that employees had to be a part of, where they were judged and reviewed and assessed on capabilities, KPIs, competencies that were for the next level. So what I realized, it's not really the smartest or the most best performing guy who really scored the most in these development centers. It was those who attended these development centers with a sense of curiosity. Humility, yes, and especially for this region, because we work with different cultures and different backgrounds, leadership skills. But those with curiosity were the ones who actually made it. Those who were rigid, saying, okay, this worked for me in the past, and
I'm going to follow the same.
I will follow the same. Really, they were really stuck. So again, if you want to really be successful in this region, it's not the smartest. It's not really the one with
not
the most experience. It's the one who can evolve with the region, the one who can adapt, and the one who's willing to learn always and build those future skills.
Fully
also
agree.
Unlearn.
And also unlearn. We fail to unlearn, right? We keep on learning.
100%.
We've never unlearned in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, you've crystallized most of the things.
It's all about the future, It's all about the future.
Flexibility, adaptability, willing to learn, and also willing to change and not being rigid are some of the essential features that you need to have if you want to succeed in this market. Great.
Best place to be.
Then this becomes best place to be. We rush into the last 5 minutes, I believe, in our podcast left. I'm going to take all of you into a really exciting, not necessarily a quick fire, but a this or that question. You have two options to choose from. You don't have to justify as to which one you chose, and you can't choose both. That's a rule. You can say I'm a bit of this and a bit of that as well, because it also, in this or that question, it unveils what is operating in your deeper mind. I'll start off with Muhammad. Skill first hiring or experience first hiring?
Experience.
I'm going to move on to Gargi. Remote work flexibility or full in office culture?
Remote work flexibility.
Moving on to Frank. AI assisted recruitment or human led recruitment?
Very difficult one, but I think human.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to Muhammad again. Hire for potential or hire for proven performance?
Potential.
Fantastic. I'm going to come back to Gargi. Build talent internally or buy talent from the market?
Depends on the organization's.
If it's an organization like yours now?
No, it depends on the organization's maturity level and the life stage. So
you're not going to choose anyone in this particular answer without knowing perspective.
No.
Cool. I will agree to that. I'm going to skip over to Frank again. Performance-based rewards or tenure-based rewards?
Absolutely. Performance. Reward performance.
Leadership that is empathetic or leadership that is decisive?
Empathetic.
4-day work week experiment or stick to the 5-day stability?
5-day stability. It's a growing economy.
Over to Frank again. Global mobility assignments or regional career building?
Global assignments, as long as they are short-term assignments where they can move on those global assignments and come back. I think that's very important.
Okay, last round. 3 more to go. HR as a strategic partner or HR as an operational engine?
Strategic partner.
Gargi, talent retention or talent attraction?
Attraction, marketing brand, employer brand.
And the last one, leadership by coaching or leadership by authority?
Definitely coaching. You can learn more by experience and from an experienced person.
Okay, we're going to finish this podcast with this question. I'm going to expect a one-line answer from all of you, and we rush into the finish. In one sentence, what is the biggest shift GCC organizations must make to build future-ready teams? Gargi, you first.
Future-ready teams of HR, come out of your comfort zone, learn the business language, talk business, and try to show them how your analytics and your support actually make their life easier from the people's perspective, be it performance, be it retention, be it talent attraction.
Future ready, make your employees speak. Silence is not good. Make your employees speak. And when it comes to your leadership, make your leaders listen more. And that will take care of you.
That's a lovely one.
Yeah.
The more and more they're in silence, the more and more uncertainty for the people observing.
Silence is
the
not
more
good.
they're participative and they speak, something is happening.
But at the leadership level, let them
Listen
listen.
more.
Listen, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for me it's 2 things: engagement and listen, but listen with intent.
Lovely, right? I mean, you pretend to listen, but sometimes you listen with intent. That is what makes the difference, because a person who's speaking knows if you're listening.
And
for
do
real.
not make listening as a tick mark activity. Make it
But
with
a serious
intention
thing.
so that
Take some
people
time
can
to do
see
it.
that what is happening out of that listening.
Thank you very much to all of you. I think the answers that you've put into my questions has given us much more perspective on how HR really operates in a global market and how individuals should behave. What should HR teams focus on and how we can make this a better place. I mean, not necessarily a better place to work, but how we can make HR better for everybody, for HR in itself and all the stakeholders attached to it. Lovely. I mean, some of the things that came out with regard to culture, with regard to nationalization, with regard to communicating more and more, with regard to listening, with regard to putting things into perspective, understanding what teams go through, making decisions, encouraging people to make decisions, all of them, and also what it takes to be competitive and relevant in a market like this are all take-home pearls to any listener who's tuned into our podcast. So thank you very much for being a part of this exciting discussion. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you very much, Gargi. Thank you very much, Frank.
It was a
Thank you
pleasure.
to all of you who've been a part of our podcast too. Stay tuned till we come back to you with episode 4 of Talent Unwrapped.